It's about trying to show that there are differences between Labour and the Conservatives. And the reason for that was in your introduction. It's because Labour's poll lead is so significant at the moment that actually the Tories really need to demonstrate that they have something that they can offer people in order to try and turn that around. And I think what we saw in Uxbridge was maybe just a glimmer of hope for the party, or at least that's how they saw it, that perhaps there were a group of people, motorists, who were underserved.
It's a big week for Rishi Sunak. Tomorrow is the King's speech, likely the last before the election. We heard earlier from the Energy Secretary, Claire Coutinho, about her plan to grant oil and gas licences for projects in the North Sea. The Home Secretary wants to crack down on people living in tents. What else can we expect tomorrow when the government lays out its agenda? Kate McCann is our political editor and can tell us what might exactly happen over the next couple of days. Good morning to you, Kate.
Good morning.
Is there a feeling this is quite small beer because there's not actually enough time left in the legislative programme before an election, really, to do anything that meaty?
Well, there were a couple of things going on for the Prime Minister when it comes to the King's speech. The first of which is that if we are about to head into a general election, which we know will come at some point in the next year, you don't necessarily want to show all of your cards, the things that might go into your manifesto. So you don't necessarily want to put everything into the King's speech. That said, this isn't something that the government develops overnight or one weekend. The lead up to the King's speech and the bills that go in it starts really before the summer. And it's things that have already been worked on by a team of people behind the scenes. So it's a bit like a tanker. It's quite hard to turn it around at the last minute on a whim, if you like. So the types of things that we are likely to see in the King's speech are a continuation, really, of the things we've already heard from Rishi Sunak. We can expect more on crime and justice, for example. And I think maybe we could see a few more little tricks for Labour, a bit like the oil and gas licensing, which is deliberately set so that Labour's Sir Keir Starmer has to say whether he would support that or not. And of course, we know his party doesn't support that. But Rishi Sunak thinks that's a good way to show there is a difference between the two parties. The rest of it, though, we'll expect around 7 bills to be carried over, things like the Holocaust Memorial Bill, some digital tweaks, and a couple of other things like rent reform. It may not be as exciting as we are all hoping. And I say that as a political junkie. I'm looking forward to it regardless. But I don't think you can expect to see lots of big, exciting new bills that we've never heard of before. And that's also because the government can introduce new legislation whenever it wants. It doesn't have to go inside the King's speech. And remember, if it is working on a manifesto for a general election, then those are the kind of policies that you would keep in your back pocket until you really needed them.
Has someone written down somewhere as a result of a focus group or the Uxbridge election, by-election, Kate, anti-green, anti-over-accentuation of green is a vote winner for us?
Yeah, I think part of this is about what I said. It's about trying to show that there are differences between Labour and the Conservatives. And the reason for that was in your introduction. It's because Labour's poll lead is so significant at the moment that actually the Tories really need to demonstrate that they have something that they can offer people in order to try and turn that around. And I think what we saw in Uxbridge was maybe just a glimmer of hope for the party, or at least that's how they saw it, that perhaps there were a group of people, motorists, who were underserved. And so some of those policies around, allowing people a bit more protection, maybe something on speed limits and how councils can impose them, particularly 20-mile-an-hour zones, and those LTNs, those traffic calming measures that have got people in cities so frustrated. But again, there will be those who look at those types of policies and accuse Rishi Sunak of tweaking or meddling around the edges and not really offering any great vision. And it's fair to say to him that his comments released ahead of this are very much around long-term decision-making, stable economic choices and prosperity for the future. And he actually says himself, there'll be no short-term gimmicks in this speech. So I think if we've got Tory MPs expecting rabbit out of the hat moment, they may well be disappointed. Just one more thing. There is, of course, a fun bit for, again, political geeks in the King's speech. It's the loyal address, which comes afterwards. It's a bit like an after-dinner speech in the House of Commons, and MPs are supposed to make it lively and amusing. I can let you into a secret because I found out who the MPs are who are doing that speech. It's Robert Goodwill who's the proposer. He's, of course, stepping down. He's the MP for Scarborough and Whitby. And Siobhan Bailey is the seconder. She's the MP for Stroud. She's relatively new in the Commons. So it'll be a big moment for both of them.
There we go, Kate. A bit of political wonkery to finish on. Kate McCann is our political editor, the queen of such wonkery.